rounds like last week didn't go over well. It's okay.
The weather is really, really nice today.
It's okay. Even though the Hell Realms turned everyone off from losing forever, that will never come back. We'll still continue, you know?
Not everyone.
Not everyone, that's true. We have you guys that are hardcore. So that's good. Talk about Eon's tonight, see what that does for you.
Worse than that.
Shall we?
사실 거기 주신 내 덕장 위로운 신인된 바디 성대신 주니 대대와기 드로큰 넘다신 라시 파쇼 이란 그릇 나만다라 감림야타야미 성대 제랑석이 접남라 전주바드 악니 겹수지 나기 전yen기 배선함기 드로라 벤시의 성대주 파쇼 성대지랑석이 접남라 전주바드 악니 겹수지 나기 전yen기 배선함기 드로라 벤시의 성대주 파쇼 성대지랑석이 적남건 정주발드 닥니 겹수지 나기 진행기 배선함기 드로라 벤시의 성대주 파쇼
So let's meditate, please, for a few minutes, just to take our mind out of the thoughts of the day and the activities of the day into a more neutral space. So we'll do 7 rounds of breathing. If you sit with your spine comfortably straight, your eyes gently closed, breathing through your nostrils if you can. And 1 exhalation and 1 inhalation is 1 round. And just maintain your awareness, sensation at the tips of your nostrils. And if your mind goes to any thoughts or distractions, go back to 1 and start again. Please begin with an exhalation. Reflect upon the being that you consider to be the purest and most holy one in your life. Try to see them clearly in your mind's eye. Ask them to come and join you here in this room. Feel their presence and visualize them here glowing in light. acknowledge a quality that you particularly admire in them, that you wish for yourself, and bow down to that. Ask them to teach you. Imagine yourself offering something precious and beautiful to them. Think about the greatest goodness that you did today. See that in its detail. Replay that scene. Feel very happy about it, as intensely joyous and happy as you can, then offer that feeling. Select your greatest harm of the day, body, speech, or mind, to yourself or someone else. Review it in detail. Take a moment to remember that you aspire to help every living being. You didn't do that. Take a moment to reflect that you collected the karma to experience this again in the future. You have created your future suffering in this instance. You will experience more of the same and greater. Feel some regret about that in your heart. Resolve within yourself to stop doing that, to refrain from doing that for a specific, manageable period of time. Decide upon that time period, how long it would take, how long you'd be able to do it. Decide upon some antidote or make-up activity, some positive thing you can do to offset that past negativity. Resolve to do it. Turn your attention again to this holy being that you've invited here. Ask them from your heart to remain with you until you reach the end of your path, your personal paradise or enlightenment. And of course you see them happily agreeing, smiling. Very pleased with your request. And they move to the space in the air above your crown, becoming smaller and brighter, facing forward with you, glowing as an orb, crown ornament above your head. Much to all the holy beings here and everywhere. Thank you for your blessings and guidance. Esther has a quiz, if anyone's taking a quiz. Is anyone taking a quiz? All right.
Oh, it's so funny to see an automatic response to a visual. It's like, it's like Pavlov's dog. Thank you, John. Oh. This?
I'll pass it over.
I think it goes to her. That's where she's done. She collects them.
Give it a blank, please.
That's one cool side.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Thank you.
Different, that's one. It's just concentrated knowledge. You just want to do that.
Yeah. That's clever.
She's gonna have to marry score something. Is that the pointing?
if it gets too hot, we'll turn it back on. Just let us know. Let me know. Thank you. Sorry. So, a comment was made that it was kind of depressing talking about the Hells last week. Because if you think about it much, you have the feeling of, damn, this could happen to me. Right? Anything else? Anything you wanted to add to that? Yes.
What?
Anything you want to add there?
No.
That was it.
That's it.
All right, not much of a conversation.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Yeah, I mean, it's a very unpleasant topic, right? It's a very unpleasant subject. I mean, frankly, I'd rather not talk about a lot of the material we talk about if I were left to my personal devices, but I'm following the curriculum that Holy Geshe Michael created, so I am, shall we say, following the...
After you finish, I have a question.
Following the, following the prescribed curriculum. So I'd rather not be talking about what we're talking about tonight, in fact, for the first 90% of the class, but we will. And I hope that you'll stay awake and I won't lose you and you'll get something out of it and find it meaningful and enjoyable. Tonight we're talking about eons and kalpas, which, I'm trying to deal with today, right? How about let's talk about today, right now. Not, quintillions of years, but anyway, we'll talk about it. Yeah.
But how do you answer people when they look at these Buddhist teachings like the Hell Realms and they say, well, it's just psychological. I think it's a metaphor for, I go to work and the yelling boss seems like fire to me and like I'm being split open and,
Yeah.
I have a...
Yeah, a lot of people take it that way, and some Buddhist teachers even teach it that way, right? I mean, there are a lot of different levels at which teachings are given. There's the mass marketed teachings where things are sort of made soft and fuzzy, right? And then there are the scriptural teachings from the canon which say this is what it is and this is what it isn't and this is what the scriptures say is like even though you can't perceive it. And that's really all you can tell a person, I think. I think you can tell them that that's nice. It's a nice subjective interpretation and it's sort of easier to think of it that way, right? But that's not what the scriptures say, and that's not what teachings on karma and emptiness would also lead one to deduce could be the case, right? I mean, I think the core of any Buddhist teaching and the core of any answer to any question or any argument we might make has to come from the central basis of ethics, karma, and emptiness, right? So, if we're talking about ethics, as in if you're virtuous, you collect virtuous karma and that comes back to you. And if you're, harmful, negative, collect that negative karma and that comes back to you. Things are not self-existent, right? We are projecting our world and our reality and our experience based upon past karmas ripening, right? The past karmas we collect ripen, we have that experience of ourselves and our experience of the world, and that is our valid reality. So, I mean, it's a long conversation because you can't just drop that line on somebody and have them understand it, And that's why people, I think, water it down and soften it up, because it's a lot easier to say, "Oh yeah, if you're feeling bad, that's hellish." But it's not a big stretch to say to somebody, "Look, we see people on fire around us. People in war get burned. People in car accidents get burned. People in domestic disputes get burned. I mean, it's not that big a stretch to say, you could burn for, a minute or 5 minutes or however long it takes to get burned to death, versus saying you could be born in a realm where you're burning all the time, in terms of a hot hell, So, but that's a step that some people just don't want to accept and some people don't want to take. And I think the only meaningful answer to that, beyond, it's not that big a step, is a more in-depth explanation of the nature of perception, the nature of reality, and the nature of karma and emptiness of ethics. So hard to do in 2 minutes. I mean, the short answer would be, well, all of the great masters in the past, all of the scriptures say it's this way. So, we can have a long discussion about it, or you can study course numbers, 5 and 8, and get 28 hours of it, and really understand it. Or you can just, here's the 2-second answer. The scriptures say it really is a place, and you really do exist for millions of years in pure pain, burning, and like that, Yeah.
Well, I missed that class last week, so maybe the question that I'm about to ask was covered, so I retract it. But aside from the...
Okay.
That was too painless for you, John. I need more of that now. The part about a lot of this I don't understand, including the obvious seeming disproportionality between the act of commission and the consequence of it. But leaving that aside for a moment is the issue of the arithmetic, which is considering how easily and plentiful the sins are and how they magnify to extended, even the briefest period of one of these hells is
Millions of years, yeah.
So if you start out with a population A and they act as humans can be expected to act, then plainly in one generation, that entire population will be
Wiped out,
Wiped out. And maybe there are 1 or 2 bodhisattvas or aryas, that make it through the cut. But everybody else is going to be serving a term of eons. So where then, if there's a second generation, okay, do the inhabitants of the second generation come from? And whatever that answer is, okay, wherever they were, why didn't they act in a way in that locale that also landed in the hells? So in Liberation of the Palm of Your Hand, where I had this extensive argument with Babanka Rinpoche about this whole issue, I didn't get an answer. It doesn't add up.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the raw numbers, and it's like we talked the other week about Shakyamuni. He said, he put his finger down and picked up a speck of dust, and he said the number of beings going to higher realms are like this. He said the number of beings going to lower realms are like all the other grains of dust on the planet. That's the proportion. So do the math, right? Essentially is what you're saying.
Yeah, do the math. Where's the second generation? If this is literally taken as given, where's the second, and never mind the third or the fourth?
And so, if we just talk about the human realm, for example, we talked about it the other week, in terms of the preciousness of this life, right? Like censuses of the ocean and insects and everything else. It's like the numbers are huge. Like there's 6 billion, 7 billion humans, right? And I think it's something like in a cubic yard of dirt, there's 1 trillion insects. And like we talked about the census of the ocean, they concluded not long ago, where there's just like vast, inconceivable numbers of beings. I forget what the number was. It was like decillions of beings or something. Right? And then you got these are just the ones that are scientifically calculated and observed, right? So just on this planet, in the animal realm that we can observe directly, there's countless trillions upon trillions upon trillions of beings, right? And then we've got other realms that Buddhism says exist that we can't observe. Within the desire realm, the form realm, and the formless realm, right? So you've got who knows how many beings in the formless realm, who knows how many beings in the higher form pleasure realms, right? And then this craving spirits in the hells and the higher pleasure realms within the desire realm, right? So huge numbers, right? So I mean, if one were to say that humans are 1 trillionth of 1% of existing beings, I don't know what the number is, but it's a really, really small number, right? Well, I mean, it could make sense if you do the numbers, because it's not like every being that there is goes straight to hell on their next rebirth, right? I mean, if there's decillions and decillions and decillions of beings, and some tiny percentage of them are taking human rebirth in their next life, right? Well, then there would, potentially be sufficient human population.
So we ought to understand that the generation 2 is
Other realms.
beings that were not human in their previous life.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. It's not just human beings who take rebirth as human beings. I mean, there's complete mobility between realms based upon what karmas are ripening. So form realm beings, or formless realm beings, or high pleasure beings of the desire realm. I mean, they're down all around, right, based upon the karmas that are right there. So I think the thing that my takeaway personally is that we are such an infinitesimally small fraction of existing beings, humans, that it doesn't take a lot of, it just takes a tiny fraction of beings from the other realm to populate the human realm. So that's how I think of it. So tonight's class is about eons. After the depression of last class, although Hector said his students really were into it and they really loved it and they were really juiced to do more. So, but we're not going to do it anymore. So this is kind of like take a break class. This is sort of a lighter class. Take a deep breath, relax. Don't think about the hell realms class. It's from the Lama Chedmo Jesum Kappa. So far we've talked about what? We've talked about the desire, all the different. We talked about the beings of the formless realm. We've talked about the beings of the. Did I say formless? Formless and form realm, right? And different levels of the form realm, and then high pleasure beings. Then we talked about the 6 realms of the 6 beings of the desire realm, right? Hell realms, craving spirits, animals, humans. What else?
Pleasure beings.
Pleasure beings. Is that 6? No.
Well, you can divide them.
You can divide them into demigods and near pleasure beings, and you can divide them into jealous, almost pleasure beings, and really not jealous pleasure beings. You can divide them however you want, right? But anyway, we talked about all these different beings and the nature of their lives and their lifespans and what they go through. So the next 2 classes we're going to talk about death, and so those are important classes to attend because the death process and death itself is an important topic in Buddhism, right? Important to cover how that happens and what that process is and how to use it to one's advantage if possible, how to have a good death if possible. And also having an awareness of death, of course, is a very powerful motivator in this life to live life well and to not waste this life and to make it meaningful, right? So that'll be the next 2 classes, number 9 and number 10. So tonight we are talking about eons, right? Kalpas. What's a kalpa? Eon. It's not a trick question. I gave it away. So this is kind of just a fun class. The idea is all in the scriptures and in the texts and commentaries, they're talking about kalpas all over the place. They throw the term around, and this takes this many kalpas, and that takes that many kalpas, and it might be useful to know how long a kalpa is, right? So we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about 4 different kinds of kalpas. There are more than that. It comes from the Abhidharma again, 3rd chapter. There are more than 4 kinds, but we're going to talk about 4 different kinds of kalpas tonight. And in that chapter, they go down to descriptions of milliseconds, and they go up to descriptions of light years, and they go into descriptions of subatomic particles, and they go into descriptions of galaxies and planets and world systems. So this comes from that 3rd chapter. So please say Jigpe.
Jigpe.
Kalpa.
Kalpa.
So Jigpe means destruction. Kalpa. Right. So this is an eon of destruction. This is called the eon of destruction. And basically this is the eon during which the world system is destroyed. So when they talk about kalpas and eons in the Abhidharma system, they're dividing existence into different periods or segments, I guess you could say. And so first we're discussing the period during which everything is destroyed. And they call that the eon of destruction. Right? So they say that 4 different things happen at the same time, and that kicks off the eon of destruction. And I think when we think in these terms, we have a bit of a, like a short timeline way of thinking about it. Like I'm always interested in human history, and I'm always looking at when did humans begin according to science, right? And I'll say, well, just got my National Geographic yesterday. It's like, they found the earliest temple from 10,000 years ago, and humans were considered to have begun, maybe 100,000 years ago in their present form. And, You know, maybe you could go back 200,000 years or 300,000 years, but that's about it. You know, Buddhism has a much longer timeline, and we're going to get into it and we're going to talk about it. So, so the four things that happen that start the eon of destruction. The first is that there are no more beings take rebirth in Avicii hell. You remember we talked about the lowest hell, Avicii hell, the hell with the highest, most intense suffering, and also is the hell with the longest lifespan, right? So, and if you recall, we said that each planet or world, like this one, has its own realms associated with it, right? It's not like the hell realms are 10 galaxies over or something, you know, and like the burning nebula or whatever, right? You know, so the all of the realms associated with us are associated with this planet, talked about in that context, okay? So if there's the Avicii hell, right? If beings have extremely long lifespans in this hell, if this system is destroyed, it wouldn't really work to have a being in hell, would it? Because their hell realm would be destroyed. So they say, okay, the first thing that happens to kick off the eon of destruction is no more beings take rebirth in Avicii hell. Because there has to be enough time for all the beings who have been born in Avicii hell to live out their full lifespans and clear out of Avicii hell before it gets destroyed at the end of the eon of destruction, right? So, first thing. Would have never thought of that, right? Would have not been the first thing that came to my mind, right? I might have been like somebody nuked somebody, right? Or I don't know, whatever. That's in here. We'll get to it. So anyway, all of a sudden, beings stop taking birth in the Avicii hell on this planet because this planet's getting ready to be destroyed, right? And there won't be time. There won't be. You can't destroy it and still have you can't destroy the Avicii hell if beings have a lifespan to live out there. So, this is millions and millions and millions of years before the actual destruction of this world. Beings stop taking birth in Avicii hell. Okay, it's a sign. It's a sign that the beginning of the eon of destruction is kicking off. Yeah.
But then what do you do with the fresh sinners?
Exactly.
Who would otherwise have landed in?
Yeah. Where do those flies land?
Well, there's like 7 other hot hells.
So remember, all the realms are associated with this planet, which is going to be destroyed in the eon of destruction. So what is a bardo? Bardo being is an intermediate state being, right? And it's one of the qualities of a bardo being is it's a very subtle form that travels at about the speed of thought, right? And so bardo beings can travel from planet to planet. So any being that would be due to take, any being that's collected the karma to take rebirth in Avicii hell, for example, would then take rebirth in Avicii hell on another planet. You know, they're bardo, as a bardo being, they would travel to that planet and take rebirth in that Avicii hell. So anybody who's, you know, so it's like that. If you've collected the karma, in Buddhist cosmology, there are many world systems, many inhabited planets, many world systems. This is one of, you know, a vast number. So you know, they go to those other planets and they take rebirth in Avicii hell that way. So the second event that happens is that people's lifespans, the beings on the planet, their lifespan reaches 80,000 years. They have a lifespan 80,000 years long. So again, it's not our normal way of thinking. So, and this human beings here on Zambuling, according to this system, right?
Wait, whose lifespan?
Humans. Humans have an 80,000 year lifespan, right? And so, and these things are all happening at the same time, okay? These events are taking place at the same time at the beginning of the eon of destruction, right? And then, in conjunction with that, other events begin to happen where the other beings of the other realms, craving spirits, animals, human beings, those realms begin to empty out also, okay? People who are supposed to be, you know, born that way take birth that way in another planet, another realm, another world system, right? Different place, different planet. So whatever beings were living here in whatever realm associated with this planet and this world begin to take rebirth in other planets and realms and start to empty out the realms associated with this planet, right? When they die, they take rebirths in other places, right? So with the human beings here, it says they begin to reach the first level of the form realm. Remember we talked about how one reaches the first level of the form realm. Does anybody remember?
Meditation.
Yes, you achieve a certain meditative capacity, and as a result of meditating at a certain in a certain way, at a certain level of depth and subtlety, one takes rebirth in the form realm, first level of the form realm, because one's mind is basically abiding in that state already in a regular way, right? So it says what happens is that one human being, it's actually very cute terminology in the reading, you can read it. One human being achieves this ability to reach the first level of the form realm in their meditation, and they come back out of meditation and they say something like, wonder is the bliss and the pleasure to behold in the form realm is something truly wondrous, you know. And then it's like on the cover of Time magazine, and then everybody does it. Something. No, what the text says is that, so after that person has that experience and tells people about it, then everybody starts doing it. And then humans, vast numbers of humans begin achieving the first level of the form realm and taking rebirth in the first level of the form realm. And so basically, the desire realm is emptying out, right? Beings are coming to the end of their natural life, and they're taking rebirth either at a higher realm, which won't be destroyed because it's a more subtle realm and it's not physical, or they're shipping off to another planet and system of realms, right? Okay, so this is while the eon of destruction is going on that this process is occurring, right? Okay, so the human realm's emptied out, along with all the other realms, all the other beings of desire realm. Those are all emptied out, and so then what happens is all those humans and other beings who have attained the first level of the form realm, they're meditating well, and they have an experience of the second level of the form realm, the higher level of the form realm, and similarly they start to move up because of their meditative capacity and realizations. They move up to the second level of the form realm, which is more subtle, and so that first level of the form realm also empties out, right, during the eon of destruction. So basically, you can think of the planet and the realms as being emptied out during the eon of destruction. The whole process of clearing out the earth and all the realms and sentient beings associated with them takes a period of 19 intermediate eons, which we have to talk about what an intermediate eon is. I think we got to put it on the board, right? So, please say Barkal. Barkal is an intermediate eon. And there are 20 of these eons that comprise an eon of destruction. All right? And after all the beings have emptied out from this planet and its realms, then you can guess what happens, right? Then the actual destruction begins. And they say that the sun, it's like the sun splits into, like you would see in a solar system or something where stars are birthing, or I don't know astronomy that well. But, then there are two suns, and this process takes millions of years. And so it says then there are two suns, and as a result of the sun dividing and forming two suns, that the smaller bodies of water dry up, and the rains stop, and the crops die, and then they say that vegetation and forests dry up, and it says millions of years, and the third sun appears, and then that dries up the rivers and lakes, and then fourth sun appears, and the larger bodies of water, like the Great Lakes, for example, dry up, and then another sun appears, and the huge seas dry up. The fifth sun arises, the outer sea dries up. Remember, in this system we have the concentric mountain rings and the seas inside and outside. So it says, so when the fifth sun arises, it says the outer oceans dry up. And the sixth sun rises, then Mount Meru and the four continents go up in smoke. And then the seventh sun arises, and the planet is burned in a fiery conflagration, turns it to a crisp. Right? And then a similar conflagration destroys and burns the first level of the form realm, which is also emptied out. And then the beings of the second level of the form realm are more subtle, and they don't have that. They don't have that physical thing going on. So that's the idea of the eon of destruction. There are other kinds of destruction where the eon of destruction doesn't occur by fire. It's possible for the eon of destruction to occur by water or wind, floods, and so the whole process takes place through either water or wind, for example, as opposed to fire. And so there's a description of that and how that works. So, and then they get into there are minor couples of destruction where people on the earth destroy each other with weapons of mass destruction over long periods of times and things like that. So we're going to talk about what an intermediate eon is. But in the meantime, please say Chakpe.
Chakpe.
Kalpa. And Chakpe is a formation. This is the eon of formation. So we talked about the eon of destruction. There's also the process of formation of the planet in the world system takes an eon as well. Okay, so at the beginning of the eon of formation, a very very subtle wind begins to stir, and over a very, very long period of time, again millions and millions and millions of years, the wind, this wind becomes stronger and more powerful, causing the formation of the planet and the worlds, the physical worlds associated with the planet in the system, Mount Meru, the four continents, etc. Right? And then the first beings start to take birth in this planet. And it sounds very beautiful the way it's described in the Abhidharma Kosha. The first beings that take birth on this planet, they have very subtle bodies. They don't need any food. Their bodies are like glowing in light, and they're very, very gentle and very happy. And they have the ability to fly in the sky. The whole planet is just like everything is some kind of nourishment, where if you wanted to, you could just lick anything and it would give you nourishment. Basically it says that the bliss of their being is nourishment enough, and they don't really need any other nourishment because they're they're in such a high state. They don't need cruder forms of nourishment and sustenance. Right? So it sounds kind of like the Garden of Eden, something like that, right? And but like the Garden of Eden, then they slowly start to collect bad deeds. They slowly start to engage in negativities, and they start to, do the things that, what are the sort of common 10 non-virtues?
Killing, stealing.
Yeah,
Conduct.
divisive talk, ill will, right? Harsh words, right? I would imagine, this is just me, but I would imagine in the beginning they probably start with more subtle non-virtues, right, before they move on to the crude ones. Anyway. But as a result of that, their bodies start to change, right? Over many, many millions of years and billions of years, their bodies change, and then the rest of the story, right? Their bodies become cruder and cruder, and their lifespans become shorter, right? So please say tseme.
Tseme.
This means tse means measure, and me is negative, so it means not measurable or immeasurable. And this is a specific number, and it's something like 10 to the 30th power, something like that. There's a whole numbering system in the Abhidharma. I actually looked it up. I remember my chemistry class from long ago when there was scientific notation, and like every 10th power has a name, right? So I actually looked it up, and 10 to the 30th power is actually called a nonillion, right? But so in our scientific system, that this period of time, which they call not measurable, is like nonillion years. So 10 to the 30th power, something like that. Anyway, they say that the first beings on this planet live for that many years. They say that the first beings on this planet who have this wonderful, fantastic light body where everything is just bliss and they live on the bliss and the happiness lasts for 10 to the 30th years, which is a hell of a long time. Right? Not too bad, I would say. Millions and millions and millions of years. So they've got a pretty good deal until they blow it. And then they say this is the eon of formation, remember, right? So this eon of formation, they say, comes to an end when the first being is born in a Vici hell, lowest hell. And that's how they mark the end of the eon of formation. Someone takes birth in a Vici hell. And so at this point, lifespans have dropped from immeasurable length down to a mere 80,000 years, right? So at the end of the eon of formation, beings are living 80,000 years. All right? Sound familiar? This 80,000 year thing is going to be a recurrent theme. So this leads to the opening of the next eon. Okay? Which, what do you think is called? Please say Repe Kalpa. Repe means continuation. Eon of continuation is the next eon, next type of eon, right? And I actually looked it up. I looked it up online. I was thinking, because these big numbers are hard to wrap your mind around, right? And you hear about like countless, like, you know, you live for nonillion years, right? It's like, what is that? I don't know. Right? It's very hard for us to really make any kind of common sense of it. So I looked online and said the mass of the Earth, like the entire mass of the entire planet, is 10 to the 24th kilograms. So that's a lot, right? 10 to the 30th years. I mean, I'm just trying to come up with some way to approximate it. I don't know. Anyway, so the biggest number I could find is called a centillion. It's 10 to the 300th power. But we're going to work it out and see if we go over centillion. Maybe we'll work it out. I don't know. It's up to you guys if you want to. I'm just as happy to move on.
I'm just trying to struggle to see how it all fits. Like
how it all fits together? You have to wait to the punchline at the end, okay? Don't struggle too much.
This is a theme again.
Yeah, don't struggle now. Wait till the end, okay?
Struggle later.
Just listen.
I'm curious, in a degenerate age or an ignorant age, and people who select non-virtue, it's easy to see why they do. They don't really have, at least approximately, anything to compare it to. There just seem to be an available alternative. But if we start with this idea of originality, and there are beings of light who experience bliss, and everything is just.
When you say originality, you mean a fixed
well,
starting point?
in the eon of creation, as formation, there is this original generation.
Well, remember, at the end of the eon of destruction, this is not just one eon, right? There's like many of these. The end of the eon of destruction begins then the eon of formation. So it's cycle.
Okay, I was wondering, but arriving at that condition by whatever means or cycle, and knowing this as it is, why would they select any non-virtue?
Why would
people who have access to a greater bliss?
We're going to talk about it. Because it's important, right? Yeah. Like, why would somebody do that, Bruce? What the hell were they thinking? Right?
Got no place to go but down.
Yeah, I mean, come on, people. Wake up, right? Ask myself that same question. Why the hell did you do that? Right. Now, the text says something like, the point that you raised, though, about like these first beings, right? Who are sort of who are here at the beginning of the eon of formation, right? These millions and millions of years of lifespan. It almost seems like the text is saying it's the beings that made it to the second level of the form realm. Remember we said when the planets are clearing out, and they've become very high in their meditative capacity and very subtle in their existence. Bless you, right? It's hard to know because it's a very ancient text and it's hard to follow. But it almost seems like the text is saying, well, it's the beings that were in the second level of the form realm. Some of those beings now are taking birth as the beings who are there at the beginning of the eon of formation. I don't know. It's hard to know. I mean, the text.
It's all in samsara, isn't it? Like you said way back that to get out of samsara you have to see emptiness directly, and that's your way out. Everyone else is stuck going around and around. So it doesn't really matter what level of you recompass in the pleasure being in the form of formless realms. You go up, you come down. I mean, it would make sense if you can travel between worlds. You'd be born continuously cycling.
Yeah, don't think that because you're born, don't think that because you live for 10 to the 30th power years in a happy way that, you know, it's a good thing.
It's a mind that's painted that home.
Yeah. Well, this is the problem of cyclic existence. You know, this is and that's actually one of the main reasons why we're talking about this tonight. Because there's always like a holy being that beats me to the punchline, you know. There's always like someone in class who's like this great bodhisattva, this great holy being who's like, okay, here's the punchline. But that's why we're talking about these things. You know, that's exactly why we're talking about these things. Because like, you know, we've said it before. You could be born, you know, for a quintillion years, you know, with this great high pleasurable existence. But then what? If you have existed infinitely, and you will exist infinitely, right? As Carl Sagan would say, you know, right? It's the blink of an eye, right? It's like the blink of an eye. Even a life of a quintillion years, you know, is like that. And when we start to talk about all these eons, it becomes a really huge number, which I think is maybe even more than a centillion, but we'll see. And then, do you really care if you're reborn for 100 years or a billion years as a pleasure being? Because in the bigger picture, in the bigger scheme of things, it's not going to do it. You know, the only thing that's going to do it for us is getting out of this cyclic existence, this suffering cyclic existence permanently. You know, I mean, if someone says to you, "Look, your longest lifespan is a blink of an eye compared to your total existence," you know, and most of your lives aren't that good. Right? In fact, they're pretty bad. You know, so if you really understood that, if one really believed that, one would be saying, "Damn, this is the best case scenario, and it's not that good. I better find another alternative, right? I better find a way out of this whole situation. I better find a way out of all forms of suffering, rebirth, and existence. I better find a way to get out of samsara. I better find a way to get out of cyclic existence so that I can achieve a permanent nirvana or paradise, you know, enlightenment, so that I don't have this endless suffering. You know? Because for all intents and purposes, it is endless. That's kind of the punchline of the eons. We go home now. We have to go through the rest of it. I'd be remiss. No, I'm very glad you brought it up. Thank you. So let's see. We're on the eon of continuation, right? And what happens in the eon of continuation? The eon of continuation, I'm going to draw a picture because it makes it much easier to follow. And I don't know, maybe someone can be my... If you guys really want to calculate how many years all this is, which, you know, it's up to you.
It's just behind top of my head.
Then we can do that. We'll see how motivated you are.
No, yeah,
This side?
right when
Middle.
you're standing, yeah.
Next to the Nintendo Wii.
Why do you have a thing?
Giving it this heating and that stuff.
Okay. So I'm going to just let's see. Here we have our graph of the universe. This is a timeline of existence, okay? So we start up here with this. And then it's basically like this. These are, and just we're going to go. That's it. So this is over here we would have, and this is time, right? On this axis. And this is years on this axis. And this is 80,000. And this is 10. Okay? So this is the eon of formation. And in the eon of formation, beings start with these vastly long lifespans, nonillion year lifespans, right? And And their lifespan just gradually becomes shorter and shorter and shorter until they reach the level of having an 80,000 year lifespan. And then that's the end. This is the eon. Is there an A in eon? Eon of formation. And over here we have the eon of destruction. This is the eon continuation. So this one. This one isn't. All right. Damn, this wasn't an erased mark.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Well, I'll let you guys work that out.
Wash it off.
Say acetone or something.
Okay, I won't use that anymore.
Huh? I think it is.
All right. So, okay, I'm not gonna write anything else. You get the idea.
What is permanent?
Yeah. Right. What is? Yeah. Right. Like that. Oh man. Okay. So in the eon of continuation, I didn't. One important point here. I'll try to. So this would be. I'm doing this in different shape. Ignore the middle, just pretend that's a continuation, right? So this would be an eon from here to here. Of this eon, the intermediate eon that we're referring to, okay? And this is also so each of these is an intermediate eon, and there's 20 of them. 20 of intermediate eons make up one eon of continuation. Just a lot of eons, right? Okay, so eon of formation, you have the lifespans which start off extremely long, they drop down to 80,000 years. When the lifespans have dropped down to 80,000 years and the first being has taken birth and is reaching hell, that's considered the end of the eon of formation and the beginning of the eon of continuation. Okay? And then the eon of continuation is made up of these 20 intermediate eons, right? Which is the Barkal in Tibetan. So how long is an intermediate eon? Well, that is defined by the amount of time that it takes for a lifespan to go from 80,000 years down to 10 years in a complete cycle. Okay? So if you go from the bottom of the wave to the top and back down, that's one intermediate eon. Okay? And so there are then 18 of those. The first intermediate eon is just the lifespans dropping from 80 down to 10. And then the second intermediate eon and the third and the fourth all the way up through 18 are measured by lifespans going from 10 to 80 back to 10. 10 to 80,000 back to 10. All right? All right. So what happens? So lifespans continue to drop. Lifespans continue to go down, down, down because beings continue to engage in non-virtue. And as a result, lifespans become shorter and shorter to the point where the average lifespan, they say, is a mere 10 years, right? Like
That's just human lifespans, right?
Yeah. And it goes on to give this very sad description of how that happens. You know, people steal more, people kill more, people have less and less virtue, more and more negativity, and then their bodies become worse and worse, their minds become worse and worse, and more violence, more and more weapons, and all the rest. And then it goes on to talk about how people create more and more powerful weapons, and eventually they develop the ability to destroy the entire planet. And then it talks about how most people are living in huge cities all around the world. And then at some point there's some people are, out in the woods on vacation or something, I don't know, whenever they unleash their weapons and basically destroy the world. And it says, then it goes on to say that this is an intermediate eon. And then it says, then, the few beings that are left with short lifespans, they kind of find each other and they come together and there's some kind of love between them and some kind of understanding that their negativity is what has destroyed the planet and most of the people and beings on the planet. And so they come to some understanding that they need to behave differently and they need to live in a more ethical and virtuous way, and they resolve to do that and vow to do that. And as a result of then living in a more virtuous way, then lifespans begin to become longer and longer. And lifespans again begin to increase until they reach a period of 80,000 years long, because the beings of the planet are more and more virtuous, right? So, so that's one cycle. That's one intermediate eon, right? And so then it says this happens 20 times before the eon of destruction begins, right? So that's a long time, right? Like, how long is an intermediate eon? How long does it take for lifespans to go up to 80,000 years? I mean, if we look at what we know and what we can measure, we can say, well, we see lifespans going from average lifespans are going from 50 years to 60 years to 70 years to 80 years, right? And so they tried to calculate it. There were some people in the 13th century, some masters in the 13th century who tried to calculate it. And they calculated it to be something like billions of years. And so we're in a time where in the recorded history of our planet, we don't see it changing much. We don't see it we don't see lifespans increasing from 100 to 200 to 300 years, right? And so, in this system, they're saying it would take many, many millions of years and billions of years to reach that point, to actually have lifespans change in a meaningful way like that. So, I think Bhutan Rinpoche in the 13th century tried to calculate it. So an eon of formation takes 20 of those. If one intermediate eon is billions and billions of years, and there are 20 of those, it's a very long time, right? So, according to this idea, this whole planet has been civilized and evolved and destroyed many, many, many times over vast periods of time, over vast eons and billions of years, right? So that's the idea. They say the first intermediate eon is the same length as the subsequent 18, even though it's half a wave. It's just a slower, it's slower where the lifespans are deteriorating in that first intermediate eon. They're going from 80,000 years down to 10 years at a slower rate than in the second cycle. So they say that it's the same duration generally. Okay. So that's the continuation eon. So there's anything else I have to tell you? I mean, it sort of doesn't compute from what we see and know scientifically, right? I mean, we look at it and we say, well, how does this make sense, right? So you have to go back to the notion that things are empty. Given that things are empty, it is possible, right? Things could happen like that if things are empty, right? I mean, supposedly the first human beings who come here are just miraculously born. We said Zuke, right? They just appear miraculously. They just appear full grown in this beautiful form, right? And their life goes on like that, right? I mean, that's what the Abhidharma says. So we have to think about it, right? We have to talk about it. There's another kind of eon to talk about, which is called we say Kalchen. It's short for Kalpa Chenmo. Kalpa is eon. Chenmo is great. So this is a great eon, and in the text it actually talks about a great eon in important ways. And so That's why we have come to this. But a great eon consists of 80 of these intermediate eons. So it's a huge amount of time. I mean, right? I have no idea how much time it is. So, one intermediate eon is, like, I don't know how many countless billions of years. Times 20, times 80, it's a very long time, right? So, one cycle is the eon of formation, and the eon of formation lasts 20 intermediate eons also. So you have 20 intermediate eons in the eon of formation, you have 20 intermediate eons in the eon of continuation, and you have a time equivalent to 20 intermediate eons in the eon of destruction. So it's a long time. And then in the great eon, you have 80 intermediate eons, right? So in this system, they say it's 20, 20, 20. It's 60 intermediate eons from the formation through the destruction of the world system. Okay. So, why did I think like this? I mean, what's the point? What's the relevance? What's the thinking behind it? Any ideas? What are possible explanations for this explanation, this description? Nobody?
Time having no nature.
They were crazy. They were yak herders, not scientists. I mean, there are a lot of possible explanations, right?
They had a lot of
empty.
time.
That's another one. But time is empty. I mean, you have to, you have to then talk about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
Well, I mean, I've had experiences where if you're in a lot of pain, it seems like time, it won't end. Or it seems like I've had experiences where like 3 days can seem like a whole week. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, things are not fixed in any certain way.
Yeah.
Were you say something, Bruce?
Well, I mean, there's certainly a lot of interpretations that you could bring to this, but I mean, it seems to be a very highly articulated effort to describe in quantified terms the nature of dualistic samsara existence, so that there is somehow ignorant affection, aversion, and these things exist in relation to each other, and degrees to which they exist cycle back and forth, as it is given here. Perhaps this is simply a diagram of how that ignorant cycle progresses in relation to itself. And it's also bipolar or dualistic in that what you're plotting is a graph of the subject state versus the object state, and how they interact also in a cyclical manner. You have varying degrees of dualism embedded in this entire system. We have systems of dualism within ever larger and smaller systems of dualism. And time is the 800-pound gorilla in a room. All of these things are mediated. Whatever the scheme is, it's mediated through time.
It's a much more sophisticated answer than they're crazy yak herders. But Scott, I like it. I like it. Thank you.
It basically has a negative slope.
Yeah.
The whole progression. From the beginning through the eve of destruction should also be a negative slope because it says it is destruction. With scattered upticks over the eve of continuation.
One explanation that was put forward was, well, the Buddhists just picked up where the Hindus left off, it was India, Hindu culture, Hindu pantheon, Hindu cosmology, right? The Hindus had all these crazy cosmological ideas, and the Buddhists they just said, okay, well, let's just adopt that stuff and make it our own and make that our description of things, right? So I mean, that's another explanation that's been proffered, right?
Why not? Is there a Hindu gravity and a Buddhist gravity? I mean, if they had accurate perception of a common phenomenon, common reality, then how could you describe it any other way?
Yeah.
It is essentially unknown.
For us, yeah. I mean, by all means, certainly it is for me. Yeah, I just will skip the whole thing. But we have to talk about it, you know. But there's actually an important punchline. There's actually an important reason to talk, to study it, to think about it, and talk about it, you know. And there's actually a very important message and lesson in the third chapter of the Abhidharmakosha. And you know, is it possible that, I mean, this was written by who? Master Vasubandhu, right? I mean, is it possible that Master Vasubandhu actually saw it that way? You know, is it possible that Master Vasubandhu, who wrote the Abhidharmakosha, actually had a valid perception like this? You know, that he had some perception that things were like this. I mean, that's a possibility too, right? So, you know, the notion that things are fixed, the notion that things exist in one certain way only, is deeply ingrained within our life and our minds and our experience and our psyche, you know. Like, I am a human being, I am one kind of being only, you know. I mean, I live in one kind of realm only, you know. Things are this way because I've experienced them this way and remember experiencing them this way, you know. And so there's a really powerful message in this presentation, in this teaching, that is counter to that, contrary to that, right? It says, look, you know, we think things are the way we perceive them right now with our current faculties and senses. We think we are this one being, and maybe when we die we'll be dust, maybe when we die we'll be a spirit floating around, maybe when we die we'll be who knows what, you know, enlightened, or an angel, or a devil, or, you know, column of fire, or whatever. I mean, we don't know, right? It is indeterminate. But the important point that this chapter is fleshing out here is that the world is empty, you know, empty of self-existence, right? Things don't have a self-existent nature. Things don't exist from their own side. You know, things exist in dependence upon our perception. Things exist in dependence upon karma's ripening and causing them to manifest in a particular way, right? And is it the case that what we perceive right now as the world and history is self-existent? You know, like we think of history even as self-existent, right? You know, like the history books say this happened in the 1400s and the 1300s and the 1200s and 10,000 years ago and 100,000 years ago, right? I mean, is history self-existent? If different karmas ripen, right? Could we have a history book that said this? You know, science has documented that, you know, human beings have been around for, you know, no millions of years, and yeah, there are records of beings which had very subtle light bodies and, you know, lived on bliss, and beings are amongst us now that live on bliss, and we talk to them and we communicate with them and have exchanges with them and all the rest. I mean, is that even possible?
Everything is possible if you allow that the rules themselves can be made and broken.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
Yeah.
And then whatever premise you put in place,
Yeah.
the consequences only have to be consistent with that.
Right. Yeah, if the rules are not self-existent, if the parameters and the framework is not self-existent, anything is possible. And Buddhism says nothing is self-existent. Right?
But they're trying to explain something here.
Yeah.
I have no idea what.
I was waiting for you to tell me.
Was it that the karma that you accrue in a negative sense would lead to far greater duration in a negative?
It was into that kind of sense of accruing over in each small segment of time, huge negative karmas. It's like a sobering reminder that this is possible. And it's kind of like, be aware.
Fire and brimstone version.
You know, I think the point they make here is the vastness of time. you know? I think the point is that, I mean, let's just take a step back, right? I mean, let's say for a moment, let's accept for a moment, if we can, that the world as we think about it is not fixed this way. You know, if we accept that human beings have not always only lived for 50 to 100 years, roughly on average, right? 40, whatever you want to call it, 30. Back when life was short and brutish, right? So, you know, if we accept that human beings, that it's possible human beings have not always existed for between 30 and 80 years on average, right? If we accept that it's possible that human beings have lived for 80,000 years on average, down to 10,000 years on average, if we accept that premise, right? And we use that as an operating premise, and we say, how long would it take for a lifespan, you know, through a process of natural evolution as is being described here? I mean, let's say as a result of behaving well, one had a healthier, longer life, right? And then you die and you take rebirth and you do it again, right? And the same, let's just construct it here ourselves, okay? So, you know, you're doing this thing where, you know, you've blown up the planet already, or your friends or your family or your whomever, your cohorts have blown up the planet, and you get together, you're among the remainders, and you get together and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe we did this through our stupidity and our craziness and our anger and our hostility and our killing. We have to stop killing, right? We have to stop killing, and we have to start loving each other and treating each other better, right? And so let's say they start doing that, and then they live for 10 or 20 or 30 years and they die, right? And then they take reborn in the same place, and it's like that, it continues, right? And lifespans, you know, average lifespan goes up to 30 years, and it goes up to 40 years, and it goes up to 50 years. Like, how many generations would it take to get up to 80,000 years, right? I mean, obviously, you can define the parameters however you want, but it's going to take a friggin' long time, right? I mean, billions of years, whatever. You know, however many thousands and millions of generations, right? I don't know. But, I mean, that's what they tried to figure out in the 13th century, using this operating premise. And then, you know, but then again, you know, you get up to 80,000 years, and then people start killing each other, and they increase their hostilities, and they increase their jealousy, and lifespans then, every generation is getting shorter and shorter and shorter, right? Down to, you know, where the average lifespan is 10 years, and people are dying at 5 and 10 and 20, but, you know, and then they blow the world up again, you know? So that's a blooming long period of time, right? So whatever that length of time is one intermediate eon, you know? And so they're saying, look, you know, this planet has been destroyed and created countless times, you know? We've existed for a very, very long time in all sorts of forms, you know, all sorts of beings. I mean, as a human being or different realms or whatever you want to call it, right? But in the scheme of things, it's a really vast length of time, right? And so this is where they bring in this idea of the great eon, right? The Kalchen, which is one great eon is equal to 80 intermediate eons, right? And why are they talking about it? There's a reason they're talking about it, and so it gives a frame of reference for the larger discussion, really. You know, this concept of time is really a framework for a larger discussion. Okay, so if we can accept that, because nothing is self-existent, because the parameters of existence can change, right? Because the very parameters of human life can change in terms of how long life is, according to the karma we collect, then we can allow for, and we can consider the possibility that it could exist for a vast period of time. And that's really what they're getting to here. They're saying, man, you've been around a long time. You want to be around a long time. And this is a kind of a frame of reference to get a handle on what that long time is in a way. This is really what they're getting at. So why are they getting at it, right? All right, please say De. Drangme, Sumla, Sangye. De means that. It refers to that. And that they're referring to is the great eon. Okay? The 80 intermediate eons long. Okay? Which I believe it's referring to 4 eons of continuation. But anyway, 80 intermediate eons, that length of time. Okay? And then Drangme means countless. And that's a specific number in the system, and that's 10 to the 60th power. And I looked it up, and that's called novendecillion in scientific terms. Novendecillion. So, sum means 3. La here means after. Sungate, do you know?
Buddha?
Yeah, Buddha. Okay. So, so an intermediate eon is trillions of years, probably, right? And so they're saying, 80 intermediate eons, right? I mean, one great eon is 80 intermediate eons, right? So we're saying 80 eons of trillions and trillions of years each, right? Is what they're referring to, okay? So they're saying that it takes 3 countless great eons. It takes 3 times 10 to the 60th power intermediate eons. That's a long time. So, 10 to the 60th power, 3 times 10 to the 60th power intermediate eons. Okay, is what the number is here. You got it? Yeah, sort of got it. Okay, look at it this way. One intermediate eon is like countless trillions of years. All right? They're saying, here, I'll write the number. Maybe I won't write the number, but I'll give it a try. It's going to take a while.
You just went past a trillion.
It's okay. Those are zeros, by the way. Oh, I lost my count. Damn it. All right, here. 3. This just continued, okay? If you're not up on scientific notation, this is what it's all about, okay?
Makes the national debt seem small.
All right, I'm getting bored, guys. All right, how many have I got here? I got, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. That's like 29. Okay. Times 3. Oh, I got too many, damn. But anyway, it's close. So 60 zeros. 3 with 60 zeros after it. It's, I got a few too many. I got carried away. So this many of these, okay, is what they're saying, is what they're referring to.
So where does the red eons from? I thought red eons is 80 of that.
Oh yeah, thanks.
This many of red
This is what I'm
eons
gonna
or this
do.
many
All
of
right,
red
here, let's do
eons?
it properly, okay? All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. All right, so that's 20 times 3 is 60. All right?
Okay.
All right, so that's 3 times 10 to the 60th. Okay? Now of what?
Of what? Of red eons or of?
Great eons, I believe.
Right.
Let's
so
double
that's
check.
the-
Yes. 3 countless great eons. So what's a great eon?
80 of 80 that.
All right, so times 80. That was easy.
Right, so 240.
Times 80
Intermediate.
intermediate eons. Okay, well this is where we get trickier. Times,
Intermediate eon.
oh wait a minute, no, you said 3, no, this is 1 great eon, right? So we got 3, yeah,
Right.
so it's 3 times 10 to the 60th.
This
Great
80,
eons.
80,
80, so there's 80 intermediate eons,
Right.
and then an times, one of those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what she said.
That's it.
Not that it matters. I mean,
All right.
a lot, or.
That's a lot. I mean, it's just a lot. Okay, we can just say a lot. Leave it at that, right?
Well,
Well then, he says.
in every bad Western,
Yeah.
when the cavalry meets the Indians,
Uh-huh.
and the Indians are asked to describe their encounter with the cavalry, I mean, and they're trying to say how many cavalry
Yeah.
guys or settlers or there were, they don't know what to say, so they say there were as many as leaves on the trees.
We should have just said that, right?
So, that's as useful as this, and this is as useful as that, because after you get past 10 or 12, or if you're really smart, like Chris, you get like 1,000 or something, there's no human state of mind
Yeah.
that corresponds to
Yeah.
the appreciation of this notation.
Yeah.
Okay, so you might as well write anything, call it Googleplex. So either this.
My son says that. Where did that come from?
Googleplex is what they teach in school to describe the biggest number that you could possibly imagine.
Huh.
And it was a
Okay.
mathematician answering his child's question, which was, Daddy, what's the biggest number in the world? And he couldn't think of a real answer, so he said, it's a Googleplex. That's a Googleplex. So either it's supposed to be a Zen koan, and trying to reach for an answer, we enter some sort of transcendent mathematical state, or something else, I don't know what to do.
Right?
But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean anything to any ordinary human being
Yeah.
that ever
Yeah.
lived.
You say as many as there are stars in the sky.
As
or
many as the
something, right?
stars in the sky.
That's much more poetic too.
Yeah.
We should have just done that. I wish you had written the scripture, Bruce.
Maybe next.
Next one, next time.
I was going to say, aside from the vastness, I think the interesting part of the model is that, it takes into account destruction and rebirth. Any religion or worldview has to account for where things come from and where they go. And if you believe that time is infinite and things that are just in here, then you have to account for that. So that's what's interesting about it.
Yeah, it's like what's going on during infinity, right?
Right.
Infinity's not a flat line, is it? I mean, something's happening for infinity.
Is it just collective karma being expressed?
Yeah, exactly. It's that, the karma, and it's very interesting the way they talk about this system, because, it goes from macro to micro, right? This is very much a macro presentation. And so then, they're fitting the micro presentation into the macro. It's like, well, you got all the realms, you got all the beings of the realms, obviously the laws of rebirth have to hold, obviously the way and the where and the why of rebirths, and, are fitting into this system. The descriptions of the laws of karma and how karma ripens and what karma ripens into. So all these things are fitting in quite nicely, in that respect. Except that it's as many as the leaves on the trees and the stars in the sky. We can't really wrap our mind around it, right? But why are they talking about it anyway? I mean, why are they talking about this? Do you guys want a break? You want to have a break, or do you want to skip the break? Have the break, and we'll give the punchline after the break. Or we'll skip the break and go straight to the punchline. Your choice.
I want to have a break.
You want to have a break? Hector needs to go to the potty. Break time.
Is that a video?
And we'll do the punchline. There is a reason why they're talking about this, in fact, and as soon as we come back, we'll get straight to the punchline, okay? And it's not just to do a numerical exercise. There is an actual meaningful reason they talk about it.
Thank you.